meeting to order. It is Monday, April 7th, 6:30 on my watch. We are in the Village Hall as well as on Zoom. The Zoom link is top of the agenda. And we have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next then we have public appearances. Anybody from the public can speak. We just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a lot of folks who like to speak. So with that, I'll pause. Anybody in the room or on Zoom can jump in. All right, next then, discuss and consider our meeting minutes, which was held on March 18th. Any questions, comments in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to unfinished business. First up is to discuss, consider the cancellation option for purchasing the Learning Ladder property. Rick?
Sure. So the village has the option to purchase the Learning Ladder property for $1.4 million. The deadline to exercise the option is April 26th. So obviously there was the referendum result. So we just wanted to bring it to the board to get, I guess, official action on whether or not they wanted to exercise the option to purchase. You could theoretically buy the property and use it for a different purpose if you'd like, but we still have that option, but we just need direction on what to do with it.
Any questions, comments from board members?
Yes, I have a comment. So I think we should actually buy it and move Parks and Rec there and then give police MSB, and then we don't have to build a big old police station. And I just wanted to say that.
All right.
I did have one resident send me an email on Wednesday after the election and did ask what we thought of making the area a community center. And I don't, continue with the purchase and make it a community center instead. And so I don't necessarily think that we should do that now, but I did want to add that, there are still people interested in having that third space in our community. So just wanted to share their comment with the group.
All right, any other discussion on this matter? Otherwise, it's discuss and consider.
So there's still technically one more meeting before we'd have to exercise our option?
Yes, so the deadline is April 26th. So yeah, the 21st would be the next meeting, and that would be with the new board at that one.
I would be okay with not deciding tonight, given these different ideas that have been put out there, but just put that up.
Yeah, I think it's, what Chris brought up is a pretty interesting notion, but I think it doesn't necessarily behoove us to move forward without vetting out the operating costs, the remodeling costs, but I do think that's an interesting alternative that could certainly be vetted. I don't think the option to purchase at this point would need to necessarily stay open, because we could come back with a different offer. For us to move forward with something like that, we're gonna have to do a lot of due diligence in and around what it would look like to be the home for Park and Rec, right?
I would be interested in hearing from Cameron, just the financial implications if we did purchase it.
Kind of like we mentioned before, obviously from a levy limit perspective, we'd be able to borrow for the building, just don't necessarily have the funds to operate. And again, just remember Parks and Rec has a variety of things like just spaces to operate, like the weight room over there and some other just spaces. So we would still be operating out of 2 facilities. So I don't necessarily think that would be the answer, but it's definitely something we could take a look at.
We're still gonna be operating on 2 facilities if we build a police station, right?
Not for Parks and Rec.
Well, it's gonna be 2 buildings. You either have MSB plus police station or MSB plus
Right.
learning ladder.
Can you take the operational budget from the library and just subtract out the library-specific costs to try and get a general estimate on operations for the next meeting? The giant spreadsheet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I wonder if the architects that did the walkthrough would be willing to, I don't know if we'd probably have to pay them more, but somehow give us an opinion on the ability of using that building for Parks and Rec? Because my guess is, Chris, your suggestion is using the existing building that's there, not tear down, build new, because that would defeat your point.
Correct.
And so, given that we've already had engineers walk through it, could we ask them for an opinion, given maybe they meet with Sean and understand what happens in Parks and Rec, to know if it'd be even an appropriate facility to consider?
I think structurally it would be fine. I think it's the remodeling costs and the renovation costs coupled with the operating costs are the unknowns that would have to be vetted out. Feasibility, there's no question in my mind. We could certainly ask that question, Sarah. But I think all these things are going to take more than 2 weeks to do properly. So I would make a motion to terminate the option to purchase at this point, and we can revisit other alternatives if indeed that's something that we want to pursue. But, you know, given that we've only got 2 weeks, I don't see any reason to keep it open. So I'll make a motion to terminate the offer to purchase of the Learning Ladder property.
All right, is there a second?
I would second that. I do have a comment to follow, though. I mean, that is an interesting idea, and I would like to see us kind of do some digging on that to see what that might look like. And so I don't know how we can, but then the property also could potentially not be available. We could do digging and then it's not available. So that's kind of the risk that we take by terminating.
Yeah,
the
I was going to
agreement.
make that comment. If that's the direction the board wants to go, I mean, you'd want to have the property under contract if you're going to spend significant amounts doing like the analysis. So, I mean, if it's not feasible, it's not feasible. But I guess sort of a similar situation when it was being evaluated for a library. We wanted to have it under contract to make sure that it was not going to be sold out from underneath the village. So if the board would be serious about that, I think it would, because it's going to be on the open market at this point if the option is canceled. So if the direction of the board is to continue evaluating it, then there's the possibility that it would be sold, but that would just be the risk that you run if you're spending funds to do further analysis.
You also want to study the space needs of the police station relative to, you know, it's not as simple as just Parks and Rec moves out of that municipal services building and suddenly the police are fine for any certain time period. You have public works and utilities in there, planning and development, municipal court. Anyway.
I mean, I think a community center, I mean, you need a program statement of what that actually means for this community, and we don't have that now.
And I guess then maybe this leads back into the plan, like planning for the future. Why can't I think? The strategic plan, yes. And looking at that, you know, budgeting it in, or however we look to do that in the future, and how do we find what that space looks like. And this is still like a very centralized location in the middle of town. So that's the one piece that, you know, maybe we can't cling on to that because the timing just isn't right. But I think finding something that works for the community, that expands those opportunities, I think is something people are really looking for.
All right, we have a motion and a second then.
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
Does staff or do folks feel like there's enough, if we were to keep the option open, that there is even enough time to get any reasonable information before Tuesday? I mean, not I don't know why I said Tuesday. Yeah, thank
Next-
you.
next
The
2 months.
26th, yes. It feels like we have a lot of questions, we have some good ideas, we only literally have 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And likely, that is not enough time for us to truly vet this idea. Would that, right? I mean, that's what I'm concluding here,
I would guess that's not enough time,
yeah.
but what do I know?
Well, we took 6 studies to get to where we were with the police station, so, and what, 6 years or so. So that's where we'd be in between that time.
Well, I mean, I think we should ask Cameron, since he was the one that will be working on it. Is that true?
I don't think there's enough time for,
Okay.
I mean, I can get what it would cost to operate that facility, but, just this overall, what does that scope look like? Does that look at investigating parking spaces and stuff for public works and police? Like, what is the scope of that analysis? So if we got a little bit of a more time horizon to present another option, that'd be an option, but I don't think 2 weeks is long enough. Especially because it's really only a week and a half with, when we have to get the agenda items ready.
I mean, most of it, I won't even say it's even something staff is qualified to do. So I think you'd have to hire someone to study it. We're talking 6 months to a year.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, next then, discuss and consider repealing ordinance, chapter 113, music arcades and devices.
So I think it was last meeting, there was direction to repeal this chapter. So this is the formal ordinance to actually repeal it. So this is basically just removing all the text from chapter 113 because that governed the amusement devices.
Any questions for Rick on this one?
I'll make a motion that we repeal ordinance chapter 113, amusement, arcades, and devices.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, discuss and consider extending the lease agreement on property at 123 East Cottage Grove Road into number 9. Do we need to, this is on the closed session as well.
Yeah, I can just provide a little bit of context in open session, and then later on, if the board wants or determines that it's closed session is required, we can go into it. So this is the proposed lease that we have drafted in accordance with the direction we got from the board. However, one thing that we learned today was, based on an analysis by the village assessor, that the property would be tax exempt. So one other thing that we would be looking for direction on is whether or not we want to do some sort of payment in lieu of taxes additionally on top of, since there wouldn't be any property taxes owed for this premises. So we sort of put together some language for that that we got done today, but obviously wasn't going to make it in the packet. So if the board feels that a closed session is required, we could do that at the end.
All right, any questions for Rick on this?
I think we should talk more in closed session.
I agree.
Do we need to officially move that?
We can do that later in the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next then we move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting off with tourism. I'll take a swing at this, and then Cindy, you can jump in too as well, since we were both there, and we have both Brittany and Britt in the gallery here too as well. So we met on March 19th. This is the first time we've met in about a year, I guess. Had to select officers again. Update from Britt Leach on what's been going on regarding the tourism fund. You know, we got grant opportunities. There's been some marketing efforts, a number of things that have taken place since we last met. Went through the summary, or Cameron went through a summary of the 2024 tax collection for the room tax. It's a sum of $136,000 and change or so, which portion of that goes to the tourism, and portion goes back to the hotel for their development. Next, then we discussed and considered amending the ordinance related to room tax percentage. So we had a good discussion about this, kicked it to this board, the tourism kicked it to this board for discussion tonight. The request came from the hotel. They were looking for a reduction in the room tax rate. Obviously, that reduction then impacts the amount we can spend on marketing and tourism. So there's a kind of a flip there of what we can do. The closest cities in comparison, Madison's at 10%, we're at 8%, Sun Prairie's at 7%, and if you go down the road a piece, Lake Mills has 0. So that's just something to think about when we come to that discussion point. And pretty much that was it. So tonight we have discuss and consider the recommendation for tourism. Again, I think it's more for this board to discuss it rather than a strong recommendation over changing that percentage. It was just to get it to the village board to kick it around as well.
Before we get into that, so when we signed a contract with the chamber as our tourism agency, every year they were required by contract to come and present the past year. So not only to the tourism commission, but also to the village board. So if it's all right with the board, if Brittany could provide a summary of the last year of operation, or Brett. I think you guys would prefer Brett, if that is all right with this group. And then I'll just do a quick summary on the room tax analysis that was kind of done.
Britt, I warned you before the meeting, so.
Hi, everyone. All right. I was not aware I was going to be speaking, so just a moment, please. All right, here we go. So Britt Leach, Executive Director of the Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce, and then also was promoted to Director of Tourism as of last year. 2 years ago, we received the room tax. The Village of Cottage Grove were absolutely wonderful to work with, and I know that because I have many friends in this industry now, and it's not always easy to work with your local municipality. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. I've thanked most of you in this room, but truly, we got a pat on the back from the state of Wisconsin saying how well we work together. So we created Travel Cottage Grove, Discover Cottage Grove, and Explore Cottage Grove were taken. Those are my two favorite ones, but Minnesota and Oregon took them. So TravelCottageGrove.com was created. We developed complete branding for it, so think of a brand new business. Logo, branding, colors, website, Facebook, social media, and then of course all the other unfun stuff with bank accounts and QuickBooks and getting that all up and running. There was talk about hiring a part-time person to do the job of a director. However, since we have one hotel and just less than a handful of VRBOs, I proposed that I would take it on and went to my board and they approved it. And so now I'm the director of both, so just more work, but I love it. This past December, we developed a 2025 budget and our committee approved it. So within that budget, we're operating at about $100,000. So that includes think of all the overhead, salary, taxes, insurance. Fortunately, we don't pay rent for an office. And then in our budget, we agreed to contract with Discover Wisconsin, which is a locally owned and operated, actually family-ran business on the east side of Madison. So we signed a contract with them, and they're going to come out and shoot a video in Cottage Grove this summer when the weather's nicer. They're going to hit a lot of our main attractions here, so Rugby Clubhouse, McCarthy Park, Glacier Drumlin State Trail, a couple of the restaurants, Warm Belly Farm, Bakken Park, Fireman's Park. We have a long list of wonderful things here. So that was approved. We also approved 3 grants. So not every tourism entity has to have a grant program. Some do and some don't. We decided the first year not to, since we were new, and then last year we decided to approve up to 5 $1,000 grants. What that means is a local Cottage Grove business or nonprofit needs to apply for the grant. The grant money has to be approved, but it can only be used on advertising and marketing that event. So for example, if Fireman's Festival applied for the money and they wanted to, rent fencing and porta potties, unfortunately, it can't be used for operational expenses. It can only be used for marketing and advertising outside of Cottage Grove to get visitors to come here. So with that, we did approve, though, a grant for the Fireman's Festival because they were able to use some of the funds to use Facebook advertising, which if some of you are familiar with, you can target your audience. So they drove people from outside of Dane County to come see the bands that weekend and do the festival. We also approved a grant for the Rugby Clubhouse, which I think most of you in this room know, hosts several tournaments throughout the year. I would say our #1 tourism destination here is the Rugby Clubhouse because they do drive folks from all over the country, if not the world here soon, to host at their clubhouse. So then the director of the clubhouse, myself, and the general manager of the hotel, we all kind of work together to promote and get heads and beds, and that's the goal, to get people to stay at the hotel. The last one was Warm Belly Farm. We approved a grant for this year. They have a weekend-long event called Sprout. They bring in vendors from all over the state of Wisconsin, some from Illinois, Minnesota. The vendors come in, and then we encourage them to stay at the Comfort Suites Hotel. So we're hoping to increase those grant requests. Right now they're 1,000. Unfortunately, in this world, there's not much you can do for $1,000, especially when it comes to marketing and advertising. So our goal is to, as we get more funds, to increase those amounts and then partner them with, we've had 3 presenters come in, iHeartMedia, APG of Southern Wisconsin, and Madison Media Works, which are all locally owned and operated businesses. So hopefully to partner with them, and then they can take the money and partner with those media outlets and then drive folks to come here. I did have a question at our meeting about return on investment. We're definitely watching that for sure between SEO, Facebook sponsorship ads. We can also do cell phone tracking and then impressions when we get the video. When we do get the video this fall, we are definitely going to share it with all of you. And if you'd like to use it on your website or social media, it's ours to own, so we can definitely spread that throughout Cottage Grove. Lastly, let's see, anything else? I feel like I could go on. Most of you know I'm a talker, so tourism is a very exciting thing. It's a huge economic drive. There is something called a daytime visitor and an overnight visitor. So your daytime visitors are folks that come in, perhaps park at the trailhead, bike several miles, come back, decide they're hungry, get a bite to eat at 1855. Oh, they got to fill up their gas tank, so they stop at Quick Trip and then grab a cup of coffee at Grace on the way out. That's a daytime tourist. So they just spent a good amount of money here in Cottage Grove. Unfortunately, we have to focus on nighttime tourists as well because without heads and beds, there is no room tax. So the higher occupancy at the hotel, the better, and the more funds we have available. Lastly, Comfort Suites is the only hotel so far in Cottage Grove, so we have worked very, very closely with them in terms of, they're the only hotel, so it's like having one child. And just trying to get, market them. We had a professional photographer come take pictures of the hotel, helped them with social media and things like that. So, any questions for anyone?
I guess I did have a question. Yeah. Thank you. You've done a lot of work getting this off the ground, and so
Thank you.
It's exciting to see. I see the posts when I'm on social media, so I know that other people looking to travel around Dane County will see them also. So I was wondering about wedding venues. That can be a good driver. Do you have relationships with them to help generate more room stays?
Yes, so our wedding venues would be the Oaks Golf Course, which we have a very good relationship with the owner of the Oaks. Already took pictures and did blog writing about the Oaks, and the owner was very appreciative of that. Second is Badger Farms, which is just right outside of Cottage Grove, but Dave Mule actually serves on our tourism committee now. He joined our committee to help connect with them. Oakstone would be another wedding venue. I was gonna make a joke, but see them all the time down at Oakstone. So Josh and Jen, we're definitely in contact with each other. Comfort Suites does very well with weddings, absolutely, very well. So she's in busy time right now. Well, not quite, but May, June, July, August through the fall. Yep. And then also, because we share a border with Madison, we get that overflow, which is really nice. And Madison's at 10% room tax, which obviously is extremely high because they are a destination. However, we are very close to Dane County Airport, and our hotel, I say it's our, like it's mine, but the hotel here in Cottage Grove is the only hotel on 94 from here into Dane County Airport. So we have a lot of advantages with the proximity of the hotel, which is a huge marketing piece of it, yeah.
I do just want to remind the board, so our contract with the chamber went, the first year we did it, we had an end date with no auto renewal clause. So when we redid it, we had a renewal clause. Unless we give our notice to the chamber, it would just continue to work. So that's why Britt's here today, giving you guys your opportunity to speak. Additionally, I just wanted to share on the screen the most relevant portion of the room tax report. So we collected $136,000 total, which is actually within $400 or $500 of last year, of which we must kind of earmark 70% or $95,301 to the chamber. 30% is retained by the municipality. We do have a post-development agreement with the hotel to return the 30% that's collected on their behalf back to Comfort Suites. Does anybody have any more questions for Britt before I kind of get into the room tax rates? Okay.
Thanks, Britt.
Thank you. So one of the things in preparation for the tourism meeting, I got a listing of, again, this is a listing of all communities that actually have a room tax. I didn't, in Dane County, villages and cities, I did not pick the list of communities who don't have a room tax. If a community doesn't have a room tax, it likely means they don't have a hotel. They could have VRBOs and other things. So currently, we're kind of right now smacked right dab in the middle of kind of the rate. I think at the time when the 8% was established, we knew it was easier to go down than up. However, we do not feel being at 8% we're an outlier. There will be a cost to adjusting the rate, so we have to update our ordinance and spend some time working with the VRBOs, Expedia, making sure that they have the correct room tax information to make sure that they're remitting the correct amounts. Jen from the hotel gave a presentation. We were informed that the reason for the request to go down to 8 to 7% room tax was the room rates have been expressed as being too high, and this was a opportunity to hope to increase occupancy. Just kind of on the rough math that we did when it was presented, we're talking about like $1 or $2 a night. So it's not a significant difference, but just wanted to make sure this group had that information when they're making the decision today.
Just a quick comment on the percentage. So the room tax law changed in like 2017 or 2018. So now by law, 8% is the highest you can go. Madison is sort of stuck at their 10% rate because they had passed it a long time ago. So 8% is the max you can go by statute. You can go underneath that, but you just can't go above 8%.
And I do have one more number to share. So the $95,301 of that, should the board decide to make a change, that would be roughly a $12,000 reduction and available funds to disperse to the chamber to do their activities.
This letter from Comfort Suites, it says attaches a recent occupancy report, but I don't see that. Do we know what their occupancy is?
Is someone from,
Is someone on Zoom?
I don't believe so.
So obviously it varies pretty significantly from weekdays to weekends. So one of the requests I had made to the hotel is just curious to see what the occupancy rate was for the fourth quarter and third quarter of 2024. So fourth quarter 2024 was 53.02% occupancy rate. And third quarter, which is their busiest quarter, from historical data that we have, is 56.36%. Just a kind of high level note, they are much higher on the weekends, which is kind of consistent with the industry. We would not expect them to be near 100% during the weekdays.
How does that quarterly occupancy rate compare to, other hotels in the area? I mean, midweek, you're going to be certainly less occupied, right?
Correct. And I know the chamber has done a lot to help, push people to the Comfort Suites to help drive up occupancy. Kind of placing ads and things. They're doing a couple things for the draft to hopefully bring traffic in who are traveling to Green Bay. I'm not a room tax expert or occupancy expert, and I don't know if maybe Britt is either. I don't know what industry standard would be here.
So the request is to go from 8 to 7, which you said is about $1 or $2 per room, right? And then the chamber loses $12,000. And then you said there's a cost for us to make the change. Any estimate of what it's going to cost to make that change?
I'll just go conservative and say at least 300 or 400 for the ordinance change and then staff time.
I say that we're not statistically significant difference between other municipalities around. And I mean, Britt brought up a good point that the hotel is well positioned, and I think with the right marketing, obviously that's on the hotel, it's not on the village, or it's not on the chamber, it's not on Britt to appropriately market, but there's obviously a niche here for that hotel that they're filling. And I don't think that's, in my opinion, $1 off of a room rate is really what
Moves the needle.
right. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Would this be enough of our reductions? In the letter, they indicate 5% of Wanakee and Edgerton. So would the 7% be enough for them?
So again, roughly it's hard for me to answer. When I book a room, I don't necessarily am looking at the room tax because it's a pass through. More looking at, what is the nightly stay, $95, $110. A lot of the times you don't end up seeing the final price until you check out. So for me, I can speak to it. It wouldn't make a difference. There are people who might get to the end and think the difference between 6%, 5%, and 8% could make a difference, and I don't want to speak for those people. Is it going to? So let's just say going from 8% to 5%, you're probably talking about maybe $5 a night. So potentially.
Cameron, I guess their letter to whoever they sent this to the tourism committee asks for a reduction of the rate by 50%, which is 4%, not 7%. So I think maybe, I don't know, my question was, where did the 7 come from? Was that an agreed upon difference after they sent this letter?
I think it was a reasonable, I'm not going to speak for the tourism commission, but based off the conversation, it sounded like that was a starting point, at least to bring to the village board.
The 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, Tourism Commission.
Yeah.
The conversation kind of centered on that 7, and I think the hotel said that would be, the dollar off would be significant to increase occupancy rates.
Right.
And then my second question is, how long did we agree to give them 30% back? Is it into perpetuity?
Am I allowed to talk about contract? I mean, I know what it is.
I
10
thought
years,
there was like a set number on it.
10 years up to 506,000, whatever's the earliest of.
Okay.
So that would be roughly done in 2031. I think that was kind of earmarked and when we would think about revisiting the room tax. Because again, we do keep a portion of that 30% room tax if it was collected outside of their website. It's not a lot, but it's something. And it will be significantly more once that obligation is fulfilled.
Right. So, okay, thank you.
And I think, we have goals for tourism in Cottage Grove, and reducing the room tax ultimately is going to increase risk to, accomplishing those goals that Britt has and the committee and this village board and the village in general. And so my recommendation is that we don't amend the village ordinance.
And I'm glad that Cindy mentioned that, because that was my line of thinking. Cameron mentioned a decrease of $12,000 in funds, and after hearing Britt talk about the grants that they're able to provide, that not only brings people in, it supports all of those other businesses that help, build a stronger business community, and creating more opportunities for people to eat out, stay, attend events. I mean, the return on investment of this money is, way beyond, the $12,000 or a dollar a night stay. And we're not significantly out of line with our peers. And I do not consider Edgerton or Lake Mills our peers. We're so close to Madison, the airport. I mean, I understand that they may have, a different calculation, but I think we need to think about ours independently. So I agree we should stick with 8%.
Just one more general comment too. Typically, this tax is collected from non-residents. So it is an opportunity of bringing money outside of the community into the community to hopefully drive tourism.
Right. Any other discussion on this, or is there a consideration for motion?
I would make the motion that we keep the room tax at 8%.
Second.
We have a motion second then. Any other discussion on this? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Cameron, anything else on tourism?
No, based off the feedback tonight, we'd obviously continue with the chamber as our tourism entity.
Right. Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to the library board. Cindy.
Yep, so the library board met on Wednesday, March 19th at 6 o'clock. We approved our meeting minutes. We jumped right into kind of a programming report where Tracy discussed programming, our summer programming schedule, which we spent some time kind of brainstorming, giving a little bit of staff direction to her, and then also discussing some of our STEAM collaborations. Fun things that have happened. So our Lego event was a success. We did another teddy bear sleepover with EMS. We had a Medicare program that was at Village Hall. The slime party was disgusting, but everyone really enjoyed it. We've done quite a bit with the Wisconsin Historical Society and genealogy. And this month, because it's already April, we are doing a lot of Earth Day themed series, one of which is with our new trash partner, Pelletary. There is a lecture by Dr. Stanley Temple, who was one of my professors as an undergrad. So I think that's also going to be pretty exciting. Like I said, we gave Tracy a lot of ideas for summer programming, and we hope to have a kind of a final list by the 23rd of May, which will go out to all the schools. We approved our vouchers, and our next meeting is, next week already, April 16th at 6 o'clock.
All right, any questions for Cindy? Lots going on, great.
So much.
Deer Grove EMS, Cindy or Pete?
Rock, paper, scissors, I don't care.
We met on March 20th, started off with a pinning ceremony of a new paramedic. We approved the minutes, we approved the February financials and the February bills, along with the February write-offs and aging accounts. The chief's report, the highlight there was call volume year-to-date is heavy. We're on pace for nearly 1,700 calls in 2025 versus 1,428 in 2024. So we're on pace for about an 18% increase, which is pretty sizable. There was no update on the Wisconsin Policy Forum. The study was on Prairie. Correspondence, we had a letter communicating some appreciation of help with an individual father. We had a letter of appreciation regarding the teddy bear sleepover event that Cindy had mentioned. And the town of Pleasant Springs appreciated some help with a Zoom call related to a bike race that was being planned down in the town of Pleasant Springs, which has been delayed or canceled. We discussed the Cambridge Area EMS initiative. I think everybody's aware that initiative is basically dead at this point. And then we did talk about Deer Grove modifying the mutual aid hierarchy not to include Cambridge in light of some of the issues that they've got. So our mutual aid now is focused on Madison, Sun Prairie, and Marshall. And then we closed. That was it.
Pete, is that mutual aid we receive or that we provide, or both?
That we receive. We would not be receiving mutual aid from Cambridge EMS.
All right.
I do have a quick question about providing mutual aid to Cambridge. And is some of that call volume increase attributed to providing mutual aid there?
That's a good question. Cindy, do you recall if that was
I don't think
part of it?
it's
We are
the
providing
18%
mutual aid.
increase, but yeah, but I think they have less than a call a day.
Yeah, it's pretty low volume, but we are providing mutual aid when necessary down in Cambridge.
Yeah, that would be interesting to track that, I guess, if you, I'm sure that they do, but it's something I'm interested in.
It's my understanding that they still have,
They
an
still-
ambulance and
yeah.
a staff member or two, so.
All right, we'll move then on to NADVIG, landfill monitoring. I stepped in for Chris on this one. As usual, quick meeting, approve the bills. There were no test results, and I think we spent about 5 or 6 minutes together, so very succinct. It's always good not to have any results, particularly when it comes to the landfill. Then we'll move on to Cottage Grove Fire District. Sarah?
Yep. And just to clarify, I think you were subbing in for me for Nat.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris was
Chris
fire.
for fire. Yes,
Yes.
right. You were the sub extraordinaire on that Monday night. So we also met on Monday, March 24th. Went through the chief's report. We decided to hire a pest control company. We decided to award a quote for door repair. And we talked about the number of fire inspections, which is a action item on the agenda tonight to reduce it from 2 to 1 per year, which is the recommendation from the fire chief and at the request of the fire department, and is in line with other communities. But Rick, anything else to add to that?
Not a whole lot. We did run the ordinance past the chief, and he was on board with it. The town already has a similar ordinance. I think they probably have fewer commercial buildings that need inspections, but state regs do allow the village to at least provide some flexibility on the number of inspections. So we are allowed to go down to 1 per year as long as it's within 15 months of the last inspection. So this ordinance basically mirrors the state code that grants the village the flexibility.
Thanks. And then I think there was one other kind of discussion item, just given that Lorene's on fire, I'm on fire, we're not going to be at the next fire meeting. I've put a draft agenda together, but we're technically still the chair, right?
Yes.
The fire committee is just, or the fire department is just looking to know who they should reach out to right now, and as we're in this transition time. Anything to add? Did I get the question
Well,
right, Jen?
Chris was looking, or Mr. Hampton was looking for someone for him to hand off when there's an issue in the building.
Oh, it was
That's
building
what it was related.
specific.
He knows
Okay.
the transition that normally happens this time of year as far as committee member assignments and whatever, just like the town has it too, but it was more for the maintenance
I
and the
see.
issues popping up, so that's what he was asking
Because
about.
he's also transitioning.
Yes,
Okay,
so Steve will probably ask about that maybe.
yeah.
All right, then there's nothing,
Well, I think
we got to
need-
discuss
yeah.
and consider, so any other comments there? Concerns? Otherwise, a motion?
Just one clarifying question. This does not change if there is a violation of the code, that still would go through a process.
Correct. They would still issue a citation in order to correct, take whatever actions they felt necessary, depending on the nature of the violation.
So this is just if you pass, then you have this time
Mhm.
frame in between. Okay, thank you. With that, I would make a motion to approve ordinance 05-2025, amending chapter 130-35 of the fire inspections as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion on this item? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to Law Enforcement Committee. We met on March 25th. Chief was on vacation, so Lieutenant was there representing the PD leadership. Talked a little bit about restorative justice program, gave an update there. Lieutenant went through kind of we did a soft launch. There were no candidates for the program at that point. So now all the staff is fully trained and we're off and running with the new program with Briar Patch, working with them. There was no new business there on the report side, nothing really to call out there other than the K-9 was out of service for a bit because they're swapping out vehicles, so there was no K-9 report to speak of. And we are in, or maybe now done with the grants program for OWI and seatbelts. So there were extra officers out for that period of time, not only in Cottage Grove, but elsewhere. And we were noted as moving up in the standing as safest community in Wisconsin. We're now second instead of seventh. So that's awesome to see and hear. Now we just need to supplant, I think it's Mount Horeb. Yep. Thank you, Chris. And I don't know, Chief, if you want to say anything else, since you got this secondhand as well? Anything else?
No, you covered it all, and here to support the community.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's no other comments there, Chris, do you have anything else on this one? We'll move on to Plan Commission. Plan Commission met on March 26th, covered a public hearing in regards to Dolphin Swim and the consideration of adding a new building. And Brittany's here to cover that overview, and I'll just run through the agenda, and then we'll turn it over to you, and then Aaron and the rest. Then, of course, we had the conditional use permit, as well as a site plan consideration for Dolphin Swim Academy, all of which the commission recommended to this board to approve it. Next, then, we also covered an ETJ for the final plat of Kennedy Hills. Similar requirements there. Again, this is outside of the village and didn't have any comments there. Aaron walked through that. Then we open it up to another public hearing for the Queso LLC conditional use for a indoor commercial entertainment use. This is the former location of BB Jack's. This owner also owns the Mexican restaurant at the opposite end of the building as well. Then we closed that, moved on to the application itself. Again, commission recommended consideration there as well. Then had another public hearing in regards to adjusting the ordinance around beekeeping. Closed that again, that ordinance, and recommended the zoning adjustment there for beekeeping in the village. And then finally, because we didn't have enough public hearings that night, we had one more proposed amendment zoning for the library parking requirements. And kept that the same as one space per 400 square feet after that. Next time, we'll talk about the flood plan. Aaron will go through that. He's been working on that for a while. With that, Brittany.
I'm going to give kind of just a quick overview. So I am Brittany Bolwijk. I own Dolphin Swim Academy. We also run a summer camp, Flip and Dip summer camp. This kind of shows our lot off of Limestone and Landmark. And right where my mouse is a big rock pit that I would like to have a community building. That's what we're calling it for purposes of this project. We serve about 60 kids a week for our summer camp, and we are looking to have an indoor space for them to get out of inclement weather, such as severe heat or rain, where the swim school is a little too small for the population that we have. We are also looking into other programming with this building. I've received a ton of emails today asking if I'm building a daycare. I am not building a daycare, but the license and conditional use permit is for group daycare because of the use of it. So that's just a little quick background on that. Here is the site. Here is a proposed 3,000 square foot building that will sit just behind the building to the east. North is right up here where it says purposeful planning. South is here. This is a cement pavement that our campers use as an activity space as well as the fields up to the north. The blackout spot right here will be for landscaping, and above it will be a sidewalk path down here where we'll have an ADA accessible parking. The hours for the community building and the swim school are opposite, so you're not going to see any additional parking. There'll never be a time where they will conflict with parking space. Just scrolling down a little bit, here is a interior look. It's an open space with a little warming kitchen, so we've got a fridge, a dishwasher, and microwave to have camp snacks and staff access. There's bathroom facilities, enclosed utility closet for our units, so there's nothing seen on the outside, and storage because there's never enough. When I first built Dolphin Swim Academy, we came with a landscaping plan. We didn't fill all of the requirements for it because there was shown to add another building, and now that we have plans for this building, we will be finishing landscaping and adding some more landscaping with the building. Here is another view of it. Here are some kind of just little drawings on the elevation. It's not going to be high as the Swim Academy building. That's a little bit higher due to the pool room and the air. The siding and overall look is going to kind of match the building, so it's just going to be a miniature building right behind it with complementary look and landscaping. Any questions?
It's a nice addition to your business there, Brittany. I think it's going to be really nice to see, and obviously, if you're bringing in 60 kids at a tranche, then a lot of happy kids, I think, as well.
Brittany, do you hope to have it built this year yet?
Yeah, June 1st. I'm on top of everything.
The ad hoc architectural review committee also reviewed this. Did they have any additional, that doesn't come till later, but.
The additional comments were to finish the landscaping and to, it was just making sure that like the siding was the same, and we had a roof question. It'll be the same, and then that the rock siding goes all the way around the building.
Yep, correct. And then recommended approval as well.
Great. And I made this comment at Plan Commission that I'm very happy to see, a locally owned business expanding, finding need, filling a need in our community, and I'm happy to see, the success and hopefully continued success in your expansion. So with that, I would make a motion to approve the application from Dolphin Swim Academy for a conditional use permit for a group daycare center, land use at 1500 Landmark Drive with conditions.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, then next we have discuss and consider in regards to the application for the site plan.
I would again make the motion to approve the application from Dolphin Swim Academy for approval of a site plan for approximately 3,000 square foot accessory building with conditions as presented.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next then is discuss and consider the ETJ final plat for Kennedy Hills. I don't know if there's any questions in that regarding from board members.
It's pretty straightforward. As John mentioned, it's exactly the same as the preliminary plat that was approved last fall, so we'd recommend approval.
And plan did as well, overall.
I'll move approval of the application from Corey Clemens for approval of the ETJ final plat for Kennedy Hills as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we have the application for Mr. Queso. This is a conditional use permit for indoor commercial entertainment land use serving alcohol. Mr. Queso's restaurant and sports bar at 1609 Landmark Drive, the former BB Jack space. Aaron, you want to touch on this at all, or?
Yeah, so because there's a change in the business within the space, even though it's basically the same use, we do have to have a new conditional use permit issued for the new business. We'd recommend approval, just a few minor conditions. Again, it applies to this business only. We had one related to the liquor license that's already been approved conditionally by the board, waiting for this action. And then just a reminder to the applicant that any signage would require a separate permit.
So it talks about indoor commercial entertainment. I'm assuming the outdoor space that was created when BB Jack's was there would also
Yeah, that was
apply, okay.
clarified by the Plan Commission and
Okay.
included in their motion, so,
Yep.
yeah.
We got sidetracked with that at Plan Commission, so then I forgot to mention how I was also excited about this local business growing, expanding, filling a need. So I didn't want to forget to mention that this evening.
Do you know, are they moving to that other end, or they're gonna maintain that restaurant and this?
Aaron,
Both.
they're expanding to both.
They'll have both, yeah.
Short commute, back and forth.
They could stay at the hotel if they get tired.
That's right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application from Alejandro Ramirez for Mr. Queso LLC for a conditional use permit and for indoor commercial entertainment land use serving alcohol at 1609 Landmark Drive.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and second. Any other discussion on this one? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, it's all about the bees. This is discuss, again, consider an ordinance change related to beekeeping or adding that in.
Yeah, we had a resident come forward requesting that the Plan Commission take a look at this because we up to this point, do not allow bees to be kept at a residence. The Plan Commission agreed to do some research on it. We learned that most other communities in Dane County do allow bees with certain rules and regulations attached to it. The next step, the Plan Commission pulled out those ordinances from different communities and kind of looked at how the different communities handled the different issues and kind of zeroed in on what we think would be appropriate here. So the Plan Commission did approve this 6-1 with the text that's in the report. So this would be allowed in the SR4 and SR6 single-family residential districts. Some of the rules, the hives have to have removable frames, no more than 4 hives on a lot. The hive shall not exceed 20 cubic feet in volume. Any wax or materials like that have to be kept cleaned up. Hives are in the rear yard only, at least 20 feet from any property boundary. There has to be a water source, and there has to be a flyaway barrier, which forces the bees to fly up and over when they go into a neighboring property and not straight at ground level. And the resident who made the initial request has looked at this and was happy with it as well. So.
Any questions or comments regarding this?
Aaron, was there any community opposition, especially the residents that are nearby this residence? Any feedback?
Nothing that came forward.
Okay.
One of our plan commissioners does have a bee allergy, and that was the dissenting vote.
So is the context of this ordinance change consistent with the other communities that you've looked at? I mean, it kind of aligns with that?
Yeah, we kind of, all the rules were different in all the different places. We kind of picked the ones that seem most applicable, but these are generally in line with these other communities. I mean, some are a little more strict, some require you to get a permit, things like that. Plan Commission think that was necessary.
I guess it brings up a question. Is there any reason why we would not want to at least have some sort of oversight in terms of where it is and how close it is to certain areas? If a neighbor has, kids with bee allergies, and they have to get a permit to do this, that it would, at least there would be some public input or some potential discussion prior to just having an ordinance that I can throw in 4 bee colonies in my yard and all my neighbors are allergic to bees. I mean, there seems to be something that's kind of disconnecting to me, where why would we not require some sort of permit?
Yeah, that would be certainly an option. Like Aaron said, the Plan Commission decided not to go that route without doing a permit. So you could say, like, you can make this ordinance however you want it, right? So you could say that it's going to be an administrative approval. So somebody comes and applies, Aaron can just look at it and approve it. If it meets all the requirements, you could have it come before the village board. The way the ordinance is structured, it's very sort of like cut and dry. So if they meet the requirements, the village would be issuing the permit. So like, unless it's in the ordinance, you wouldn't be considering other factors. And it may be difficult to know like who has bee allergies in the neighborhood. I mean, you could maybe like do some sort of mailing requirement, something like that. But you are correct, I guess, that there's no permit requirement.
Well, I know if I had young children, I don't have young children anymore, but at the time, if they're out in the yard and the neighbor has uncontrolled ability to put in 4 beehives, I would not be happy. So I just don't know how we can address that so that the community members that do have concerns, that we don't have, endless, beehives. And I don't anticipate this being something where you've got, the broad percentage of home owners having beehives, but I think that's something we need to consider. And I would certainly would prefer to see some mechanism of approval before we allow, just a cut and dry, this is the rules, and you can, as long as you follow them, you can have the beehives.
These are honeybees, and so the behavior of a honeybee isn't to swarm and sting, and so I don't really think that, I don't see a tremendous amount of risk to neighbors. I don't think we have, there's no permit for our chickens, right, correct?
No.
Do chickens sting and do chickens cause anaphylactic shock? I mean, that's my concern. And I totally agree with you, Cindy. The risk is low, but the risk is there. And anaphylactic shock can kill somebody if they're allergic. That's my concern.
Cindy, I'm kind of, this is not my area of expertise. Do they stay contained in that area pretty much?
I'm not an entomologist, but I know several. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the behavior of a honeybee. I only know the waggle dance, actually. I think I hear, risk with anaphylactic shock if we're gonna go with that.
But I think what I've learned in my time on the board, I can say that now that tonight's my last meeting. And I think what I've heard Rick say is we can't deny, even if we have a permit process in place, the only way we'd be able to deny it is if we had in our permit process, you have to get the okay from every one of your neighbors to do this. And I think that is a bit extreme for this. And so a permit, we wouldn't be able to deny it just because a neighbor doesn't like it, is what I'm, right? Unless we literally write that in the ordinance.
Yeah, well, there may be other creative ways to do it, but because we're sort of dealing with when we're creating a permit system, we fall under a state statute that basically says we have to have objective or measurable metrics for how we're doing the permit for something like this. So it's hard to think of something off the top of my head for like some sort of public health factor, how you would put that into an ordinance. Like if the direction was go back to the drawing board, we could bring it back to Plan Commission to come up with some sort of permit process. But it would just have to be, it'd have to be crafted in a way that's measurable. So what Sarah suggested is one potential method of like getting your neighbor's permission, but I mean, we don't require that for any other zoning permit, so it'd be somewhat unusual.
And I think that the flyaway zone and the proximity to the borders is designed to mitigate risk of spread. They don't spread, but you know.
Two comments that I wanted to add on. I believe this was brought forward to us because there is a resident that has bees and it's currently not allowed, and their neighbor complained about it. So just, I thought that would be appropriate to review this in that context. And also, if, ground wasps, my husband's allergic to bees, and he's stung by ground wasps in our own yard. But there, I don't know that there's any, if someone was negligent and didn't take care of their pests that are in their yard, or, you see, paper wasps in, eaves all over the place. I don't know that there's any mechanism to cite those people. Like, that's also a danger. So we can't protect everyone from every danger, I guess is, we have to make the framework to make it as safe as possible. But I wouldn't be against like notifying neighbors that you would have this, have bees in your yard, so they could take appropriate precautions, that they'd have their EpiPen, handy if they're going to be hanging out in the backyard or something.
So pulling out my notes from the other communities, it looks like Madison does require the property owner to notify the neighbors. Stoughton, you have to register with the clerk, so another job for Lisa. Wanakee, it's a full conditional use permit with a public hearing and everything. So there's a pretty wide range, and a lot of communities don't require any kind of notice at all. So pretty wide range. It's just kind of what we're comfortable with here.
And whatever we put in the rule, we have to be willing to enforce.
So you said Stoughton has a community hearing required?
Wanakee, it's a full conditional use permit.
Okay. So if there are neighbors that have issues with it, there could be some issues getting the permit. I mean, I think at a minimum, we gotta have something in there that's gotta notify your neighbors within a certain radius.
other comments in regards to this?
What would, I mean, I think if we should give some direction then on what the radius might be, I don't know, I'm thinking we already have in the ordinance that it has to be 20 feet from any property boundary. The flyaway barrier. I think if folks are already allergic to bees, they already have EpiPens because bees exist naturally. And
It's
so I
an
don't
It's an
know.
assumption. I have a friend,
Yeah,
I know someone personally who got stung by bees and
didn't have
died
their
from,
EpiPen.
didn't have an EpiPen, they died.
Mhm. What number, what proximity would you feel comfortable with in notifying neighbors?
What is the other community that requires that? Have, Aaron?
I don't have that in my notes. I would have to go back and look at the actual ordinance.
So is it really the recommendation then for this to go back to plan with some sort of notification added to the ordinance, or considered for adding to the ordinance?
Does it need to go back? If we're talking about adding something on top of what they already approved in terms of,
No, it wouldn't have to go back. You could refer to Plan Commission if you want them to like look into other issues, but if you feel comfortable with sort of taking on the ordinance yourself at this point, we could come back with more information about what other like notice requirements are, if that's the direction that the board wants to go.
I just want to add on, just so it's acknowledged, that if we're adding on an administrative task, there will have to be some staff, not that this changes my mind on anything, but just acknowledging that there would be staff time to, tell the resident that's interested and who they have to notify. So it's just so we're acknowledging that we would be adding burden to staff time to help accomplish this. So not that this should change our mind, but just that
no,
acknowledgement.
that's a really good point, Heidi. And I guess, is it easier to make this a conditional use requirement, and then you get, public input, and there's an opportunity for,
So if it were a conditional use permit, it would be, there'd be more administrative steps. So there'd be a public hearing requirement. You would have to go to Plan Commission for recommendation and then come to the village board for final approval. You could make it an administrative permit. So like Stoughton, they would file it either with Lisa or Aaron or some other designated official.
I think the biggest thing, a conditional use permit fee is $300-something, which I think most people aren't going to do for beehives, most likely.
The other thing I think we want to do with like the notice requirement is just sort of create a template letter for them to use and just say, send this to your neighbors, whatever distance that we choose.
So we're coming down to a notification, or we want to go down the road of conditional use?
I would say notification.
We're going to do a notification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the conditional use idea.
I would say that for the houses directly adjacent, because again, the distance traveled by a honeybee, it's not, actually it is significant. Whatever, let's go there.
All right, so we're going to bring it back with a notification piece added to it. Okay. Just a little bit more work, Aaron, not too much more.
No problem.
Aaron knows way too much about this by this point. He is a bee expert.
I might.
Next then we have discuss and consider amending the zoning ordinance for 02-2025 related to the library parking requirements. The Planning Commission recommended one spot per 400 square feet, I believe, and I don't think there was anything else related to that.
Yeah, so I just want to give some background on why this is back, because we went through the process originally to amend the ordinance. The Wisconsin State Journal did not publish a public
right.
hearing notice, so because of that, we had to start the process over. So that's why it's back before the plan, or before it went to the plan commission again and to the village board. So I believe the first time the plan commission reviewed it, they voted to approve. I think last time it was a recommendation to deny. But, so that's why it's back here. It's the same ordinance that was approved a month or two ago.
Make a motion to amend the zoning ordinance 02-2025 related to library parking requirements at 1 to 400.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. I think that was it. We had a fairly busy night of plan commission, so. Yep. Ad hoc, Heidi already kind of gave away that one. We met last week on the 2nd, covering the Dolphin Swim Academy, just reemphasize the covenants within the Commerce Park, clarified some questions with the applicant, and recommended approval. We obviously already covered that, so I don't think there's anything else to talk about on that one. Reports from village officers. Rick, have you talked enough tonight?
I'm good.
Okay. Cameron? You got another amendment for us?
Yep, just real quick, kind of following up to an earlier agenda item. So originally the $40,000 or the two tranches of the $20,000 was going to go against the purchase price of the property. Since we're not moving forward with purchasing the property, that goes from being an escrow deposit to an expense. So this budget amendment is just to account for that expense that will occur, or have incurred.
So I want to thank you for sending out the total expenditures between 24 and 25 on this effort. So it was 142,142. So the 42 some odd $1,000, where did that fall from last year?
Yep. So there were so kind of as described, there'll be about 99,150 expenditures this year. And then last year, I apologize for not having that number out in front of me. Last year was $42,992.78.
So ironically, it's about the $150,000 that we had been generously received from Amazon. So I guess the question would be, at what point, I mean, these expenses fall squarely under the umbrella of library planning and development, right? So the community had no say. This really shouldn't go to the taxpayers, and certainly those funds were funds intended for this sort of activity. So at what point, or how does the mechanism work when those funds come that we could offset the taxpayers' liability for this effort?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten any formal communication from Amazon on the restriction or any strings that are applied. I would say once we have that information, and if it's truly unrestricted, that it could be used, that's something we could definitely consider. I don't believe anyone has reached out to Amazon yet since the referendum passed. The referendum failed. Matt, I don't know if that's right.
I spoke with Amazon today, but not about that topic.
So at a future date, when that actually occurs, we can address how we relieve the taxpayers of this effort. Okay.
All right.
I'm happy to reach out to them and ask them what our options are, if the board would like me to.
Well, they made a donation, and I guess the question is, what were the next steps? Or they gave us a big check that we can't really do anything with. So was there any timing on it? So isn't it reasonable to just see if they had any update in terms of that particular part of the commitment to the community?
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, clarifying the commitment, what their intent was on this donation would be important because I think that to honor their intent on what they were giving, I don't want to write what maybe their intent could be because it could be a variety of things from enrichment for a certain age group or STEAM because they believe in that. It could be, however we wanted to best use it to potentially forward, put this forward. So I think it should be up to them with their, that is a significant, generous donation they made to our community, so.
Totally agree, Heidi, and I think my understanding that it was for library planning and development, and I guess you're absolutely right, we need to double check, but from what I had seen that you had posted, Cameron, it was unrestricted, and so in terms of what we did and the money we spent, and it was towards library planning and development, and unfortunately, things didn't play out, I think, the way the referendum was intended to go, but it was taxpayer money sunk towards those efforts, so I agree with you 100%. So, but if you could get an update, Matt, that would be great, and then we can go from there. But I do think
all we know to date is that it was for the library project in Cottage Grove, and we don't know that it's from that standpoint it's restricted. It's not unrestricted, but they could put any strings that they want on it. So,
Yeah, just caution with having those types of conversations. I think I have a decade of philanthropic expertise here, and going against a donor's wish could potentially decimate future giving to any project in Cottage Grove. You have to be very careful about how you go about that.
Yeah, I think that's what Heidi was saying. I agree with you, right? So I think getting clarification to make sure we're falling in line with what their intents were is absolutely correct.
All right, so then we have the budget amendment consideration related.
We have to allocate the things as they were spent. So I would make a motion to approve budget amendment 2025-004 as presented.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we have Public Works, temporary no parking on Clark and Grove Street.
Hey, also in the packet today, there was a memo regarding no parking on Clark Street. That's going to be a temporary no parking order for approximately 60 days. That's going to be on the north side of Grove Street, north side of Clark Street from Grove Street to the village limits. We're going to try something out here this weekend with the Parkinson's Run, as well as with the large rugby event. We've had a lot of issues with emergency vehicles and two-way traffic being able to maneuver Clark Street during these large events. I know there was previous discussions in the past about the width of that street when Clark Street was reconstructed, and all of that is going to be taken to Public Works and eventually Village Board to discuss more if it should be a permanent no parking in the future.
All right, any questions, comments regards to this? It does get really tight over there, if anybody's been over there for one of those events. So I would agree that's something we're going to explore further, but temporary. Let's find out first and then move on from there. So that's just no discussion there other than that, so, or no consideration for that. Then we'll move on to communication miscellaneous business in regards to looking at the vouchers. Any questions there, comments?
Make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, does anybody have anything?
I have a couple things to share regarding garbage and recycling. We've had some communication from residents unhappy about some spillage of cans. So we've been working with Pelletieri to make sure that should there be a spill, it's properly cleaned up by the driver. And again, we want to continue to let residents know to reach out to us and Pelletieri with issues. They do take them very seriously, and they get back to us very quickly.
All right, thanks, Cameron. Not sure where this best fits, but I want to take the opportunity to thank Laureen and Sarah for their service to the village board and our community. So this is your last board meeting, mine too. And then also say that it's been an honor for me to be a part of the village board for the last 10 years. And I wish the new board continued success as they address the needs of our community. So with that, upcoming community events, we've got some Easter egg hunts coming up here. I know that. We get the signage all over the place. Anything else anybody wants to call out?
I'll call out, just a heads up, National Drug Take Back Day will be April 26th. It'll be again conducted at the MSB building from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if anybody's got unused drugs at their residence and they wish to drop them off, we'll have personnel available for that.
And Chief, we also have the drop-off box in the vestibule, right, as well? So anytime.
Always available 24/7.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that.
E-Cycle is also April 26th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. That will be manned for village residents at 225 Bonnie Road.
Okay. I was just going to say that because the 26 stuck in my head. So e-recycling too. All right. Future agenda items. Anything there that, Matt, you want to?
Just some of the preliminary items like reviewing mission, vision, values, and eventually some new appointments and things like that from Cindy. So.
Yep. All right. With that, then, I'd like to make a motion that goes in closed session related to extending the lease agreement at 123 East Cottage Grove Road, TID number 9. Village of Cottage Grove will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating, purchasing public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business wherever bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Heidi. With that, the roll call.
Dahl.
Aye.
Gage.
Aye.
Cal Nelson.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Stoa.
Yes.
Valencia.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.